Welcome back, scholars, for Animals and Habitats, Lesson 8. Today's learning goal is I can accurately identify shallow, deep, cool, warm, and dark light as antonyms and provide other examples of common antonyms. Yesterday, we learned about freshwater habitats. Why is it called freshwater? Right, it's freshwater because there's no salt in it. What are some of the plants that live in the freshwater habitats? Right here we have the cattail. Right here we had the water lilies. Those were just some examples. What are some of the animals that live there? Yes, we have turtles and deers and muskrats. That's a beaver. Turtles, ducks. Yeah. Deer, these are moose and elk. They're all part of the deer family. Fish, bullfrogs, dragonflies, and ducks. Boy, we learned a lot about freshwater habitats. Now you're going to learn about the other water habitat called a saltwater habitat. You've already learned about one particular saltwater habitat when you studied the Arctic Ocean habitat. So when we look at our Earth right here, we can see the Arctic Ocean is way up here in the north. Okay, we can see it on this globe. If I can pull the northern pole down to us. Right here, this is all the Arctic Ocean. Right here, this globe is colored it's colored by the average temperature. So when we look at the average temperature of the Arctic Ocean, it is very cold, way down here. Okay. For many years, only 4 oceans were recognized. So the first oceans that were recognized were the Arctic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean. This is both north and south, but they're both part of the Pacific Ocean. And you'll see it on this side too, because again, this map is flat and it's not wrapped around to show that this is all connected. You're going to see it better on this globe right here. Right here, this ocean on this side, which normally is blue, is going to be the Pacific Ocean. Okay. The Atlantic Ocean right here, both north and south, it's all part of the Atlantic Ocean. And the Indian Ocean right here. Okay. So some years ago, however, the Southern Ocean, which lies along the coast of the Antarctica, was designated as the 5th ocean. So right down here, the Southern Ocean is the 5th ocean. Which ocean is the closest to where you live? So if you're up here in Michigan, the closest one is going to be the North Atlantic Ocean. All this, the Atlantic Ocean. That's what's closest to us here. All right. One thing all saltwater habitats have in common is that the water is salty. Listen carefully to find out more about the oceans and saltwater habitats. Welcome to the last habitat that we're going to explore. In the last read aloud, we explored freshwater habitats. Now we're going to learn about another kind of water habitat, a saltwater habitat. Saltwater habitats, as you could guess from their name, contain lots of salt. This means that we can't use salt water for drinking. Would you like to drink a cup of salty water? No, thanks. It's hard to imagine, but more of the earth is covered in water than is covered in land. Most of that water is salt water in oceans and seas. Oceans are huge areas of salt water that stretch all around our planet, and they are home to almost half of the world's species of animals and millions of different plants. The water in the ocean comes from rain, as well as from the rivers and streams that flow into the ocean. Seas are smaller areas of salt water that have land around them or around part of them. I've come to the largest ocean, the Pacific, to show you a bit more about ocean habitats and the plants and animals that live in them. This is the Pacific Ocean. It's the biggest one. I'm standing on the beach looking out at the water. Can you see the waves are crashing onto the beach? This beach and any land that runs alongside the ocean is called the coastline or the shoreline. Now, you may think that when you are standing on the land looking at the water, that the land stops where the water starts. It certainly looks that way. But let me get my trusty scuba gear out and walk into the water. Now that I'm here, I'm still standing on the land. It's just that the land is under the water. The land slopes downward the further I go out into the water, which means the water is getting deeper and deeper. The interesting thing about the ocean floor, which is the land under the ocean water, is that it isn't flat. As on land, the earth beneath the ocean water has both mountains and valleys. Mountains are areas of land that are very high where the land peaks. Valleys are areas of land that are very low in between two high areas, such as mountains. This makes some areas of water in the ocean deeper than others. The Pacific Ocean is full of both plants and animal life. The conditions under the water are very different in various places. Some parts are deep and some are shallow. Shallow is the antonym or the opposite of deep. In other words, not deep. There are cool parts and there are warm parts, and some are full of light. There are plants and animals in nearly every part of the ocean, some in deep and open waters far from the land, and some in shallow waters closer to the shore. Some animals like turtles, jellyfish, and crabs live closer to the shore where it's shallower and warmer. Some animals like it better near the surface of the water, and others prefer to live down at the very bottom of the ocean on the deep ocean floor. They have all had to adapt to the conditions of their habitats. For instance, the animals that live in the deeper parts of the ocean have had to adapt to total darkness because the sun's light just can't get that deep. Some fish, like devilfish, have very large mouths and sharp teeth so that they can catch their prey as easily as possible. Other sea creatures have feelers on their bodies that help them feel where their food is. And some animals make their own light with special chemicals in their bodies, like when you're carrying a flashlight in the dark. I have now arrived at a special part of the saltwater habitat called a coral reef, which is made up of many tiny animals called corals. Corals stay in one place all their adult lives. They have stomachs and mouths and even skeletons. These skeletons can be on the inside or the outside of the coral animals and are also called coral. When the coral animal dies, the skeleton remains in place and other coral animals will come and live on top of the old skeletons. The colony which the coral lives in is called a coral reef. So the coral reef has both coral animals and the skeletons of those animals. I'm here in the Pacific Ocean at the coral reef. In addition to the coral, there are many other kinds of animals around a reef. I have found everything from fish and shellfish to octopi and sharks to snails and turtles. Octopi is the plural of octopus. One octopus, but many octopi. Here's an animal that lies in around the coral reef and whose name most of you can probably guess based on its shape. It's a starfish. This starfish, also known as a sea star, has 5 arms, which makes it look like a star. Although it's called a starfish, it's not actually a fish. It belongs to a group of animals that have a spiny skin all over their bodies. If I touch the starfish, I can feel that its body is covered with tiny hard bumps that help protect it from predators, such as sharks, manta rays, and other fish. What is a predator? Oh, right, a predator is animals that eat other animals. Starfish are also able to protect themselves in other amazing ways. If other animals actually catches and bites off one of the starfish's arms, the starfish will not die, and it can still escape. In time, a new arm will grow back to replace the missing arm. When an animal regrows its missing body parts, it's called regeneration. The starfish doesn't swim. It crawls very slowly along the ocean floor using hundreds of tiny tube feet. These feet attach to whatever the starfish is crawling over. As it crawls along the floor, the starfish is always on the lookout for food. This starfish's prey includes fish, snails, clams, oysters, and crabs. Here's another animal that lives in salt water. This shellfish is called a lobster. Lobsters live on the ocean floor, in openings between rocks. Their hard shell stops most other animals from trying to eat them. Lobsters have many legs that they use for crawling about. And they use the antenna on their heads, right there, those long antennae. They use their antenna on their heads to feel their way along the murky ocean floor. I have to watch out for that lobster's claws. They're called pinchers, and they are very strong. The lobster uses them to defend itself against its prey, and to catch and to crush its own food. Lobsters are carnivores. They eat fish, worms, and other shellfish. I'm going to move out of the way of this lobster before I get squeezed. Looks like I moved right into the path of another predator. This was a hammerhead shark. If you take a look, you can see how the hammerhead got its name. Its head is very thick, and it looks a lot like a hammer from above, with an eye and a nostril on each end. The hammerhead shark is a large fish, growing up to 20 feet long and weighing over 500 pounds. That's about the same weight as 10 first graders. Hammerheads like to live in warm waters, so they are mostly found near the coast, where the waters are shallow and warmer. Sharks are carnivores. The hammerhead's favorite food is a fish called a ray, but it also likes to eat octopus, lobsters, crabs, and other fish, including other sharks. Most sharks have smooth and slender bodies, which help them to swim fast. Their mouths are full of sharp teeth to help them catch their prey. Let's go back up to the surface. There's a sea animal I'm sure you'll want to see, but we have to travel further out to sea, away from the coral reef and into deeper waters to see it. This amazing creature is the biggest animal in the world. It's a blue whale. Blue whales have blue-gray skin that are covered in layers of blubber that helps to keep them warm in the frigid ocean depths. What did we say blubber was? Oh yeah, a layer of fat that keeps them warm. Blue whales are so big that they can weigh as much as 25 elephants. In fact, blue whales are the biggest animals known to have lived on Earth, even bigger than dinosaurs. The blue whale spends all its time living in deep waters. But unlike fish, it can't breathe underwater because it does not have gills. It needs to breathe air just like we do. The blue whale can hold its breath and stay underwater for as long as 30 minutes before eventually coming up for air. It breathes using its blowholes on the top of its head. Sometimes, when it does come up for air, it breathes out a huge fountain of water from the blowholes. Blue whales are carnivores. They eat a lot of food to build up their blubber during the summer months, when food is easy to find. Blue whales eat teeny tiny sea creatures called plankton. The plankton that the blue whales eat are small shrimp-like shellfish. that are about the size of your little finger. It's incredible to think that the biggest animal on Earth eats one of the smallest animals on Earth. The ocean is so huge and deep that we could spend all year looking at the plants and animals that live there and still not see them all. In fact, there are still many living things in the ocean that people and adventurous rats have not even discovered yet. I hope you've enjoyed learning about the oceans and this saltwater habitat of this Pacific Ocean. We still have one more stop to make on our worldwide tour of habitats. I'll see you next time. Okay, what makes a water habitat a saltwater habitat? Yeah, it contains lots of salt. Name the 5 oceans on the Earth. We've seen them on this map. Nope, on this map. So we've seen them on this map. We said they were the Arctic, the Pacific, the Atlantic, the Indian, and the Southern Ocean. Good deal. How would you describe the ocean's floor? Is it level and flat, or does it go up and down? I hope you said it goes up and down, or slopes, just like the land outside of the ocean. It has mountains and valleys. What are some of the ways that animals have adapted to saltwater habitats? So they have large mouths and sharp teeth to catch prey, feelers to find food in the dark, chemicals to make light, blubber to keep them warm. Those are just a few of the ways they've adapted. Gills to breathe underwater, sharp spinies, the ability to regenerate limbs. We talked about a lot of different things. The antlers to feel their way around. Describe the types of animals that live in a saltwater habitat called the Pacific Ocean. Well, there was the starfish that was shaped like a star. The hammerhead shark, a head shaped like a hammer. The lobster who lives on the floor of the ocean. Do the animals that you learned about in the Arctic Ocean, walruses and polar bears, also live in the Pacific Ocean? Why not? That's right, because the climate is different and the other conditions, like the food availability and stuff, are different there. What animal is this? It's a starfish. Starfish eat fish, snails, clams, oysters, and crabs. Is the starfish a carnivore, omnivore, or a herbivore? It is a carnivore. You heard about starfish and regeneration. What does that mean? Right, it can regrow its body parts. What animal is this? I'm sure you said it was a lobster. Lobsters eat fish, worms, and other shellfish. Is the lobster a carnivore, omnivore, or an herbivore? It is a carnivore because it eats meat. Where does the lobster find shelter? Finds its shelter under and around rocks and coral reefs. What animal is this? He is a hammerhead shark. Hammerhead sharks eat lobsters, crab, fish, and other sharks. Is the hammerhead shark a carnivore, omnivore, or an herbivore? I hope you said carnivore, because he's eating meat. What animal is this? Right. There he is. What animal is this? He is a blue whale. Blue whales eat teeny tiny shrimp-like animals called plankton. Is the blue whale a carnivore, omnivore, or an herbivore? Ah, he's a carnivore because that plankton is an animal that it's eating. Do blue whales have gills to breathe underwater? No. So how then do they breathe? I hope you said that they breathe through blowholes on the top of their heads. In the read aloud today, you heard the conditions under the water are very different in various places. Some parts are deep and others are shallow. There are cool parts and there are warm parts. Some are dark and some are full of light. Say the word shallow. If something is shallow, it's not very deep. The water in the mud puddle is shallow. Can you think of a place where you have seen shallow water? Try to use the word shallow when you talk to someone about it. What's that word we've been talking about? Shallow, yes. The opposite or antonym of shallow is deep. You just heard some other antonyms used to describe the ocean. Some parts of the ocean are deep and some parts are shallow. There are cool parts and there are warm parts. Some are dark and some are full of light. We call the words shallow and deep antonyms because they have opposite meaning. Are there other pairs of words in the sentence that have opposite meaning? Cool and warm, yes. Dark and light, good job. Today's learning goal was I can accurately identify shallow, deep, cool, warm, and dark, light as antonyms, and provide other examples of common antonyms. So I hope you take some time right now and go talk to mom or dad or grandma or whoever's in the room with you about a few antonyms you can think of. Thank you for listening to Animals and Habitats, Lesson 8. I'm looking forward to seeing you again tomorrow.